So Hank, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, just living the grind as always.
Yeah, yeah. So for people who don't know who you are, tell us a little about yourself. Who is Hank? Who is the Bass Geek?
You know, I'm just your average Joe. I've been fishing for years. I always tell people I grew up, super like dirt poor, you know, uh, grew up fishing, out of a little John boat on a little local municipal reservoir, didn't really have anybody, grew up on Saturday Sunday mornings watching Bill Dance and Roland Martin, Jimmy Houston, and so. But really nobody around me kind of fished for bass. I never really had anybody that fished tournaments and stuff. So I had to learn from those guys way back then because I'm so old I fart dust, right? But so it was there, Bassmaster Magazine, and I fish a lot of, like ultra highland, super clear reservoirs, steep deep. So a lot of the stuff that they were talking about in there just really didn't relate. So, that's kind of why I jumped into YouTube, was because I wanted to help guys like me who really didn't have, you know, a dad or a granddad that fished, or, you know, or an uncle or a friend or whatever, and so that's kind of why I got started doing this whole weird thing that is YouTube.
So talk about your channel, the Bass Geek channel. Now, one thing I like that you do more than a lot of other fishing creators out there is that you talk about lures that are not, um, you're not going to find at your big tackle shops, your Bass Pros and stuff. And
Yeah.
so talk about what your method to the madness. Why do you choose the lures you do and the topics you choose?
Well, I like to talk about all the different techniques because I think it helps people. And, one thing that I learned real quick after being on YouTube is that, when I do on the water, like fishing videos, you know, uh, when people see me fishing a certain way and they see me catching them, they're going to go out there and hit those spots. So, you have to kind of stay ahead a little bit, right? So you have to find these unique ways to catch these same fish because they do get, used to these same sort of baits coming by their heads all the time. And, you know, it, if you're not testing out new stuff, then you're not getting the same bites, And so that's kind of when I see new baits or I hear somebody, talking about them, I go out there, and to me it's about, okay, this is going on this lake that I fish, and then somebody comes out like with Duo or whoever it may be, Demiki, and there's a bait, and I'm like, oh, that bait may work in this situation for this particular bite that I'm trying to extend or expand on. And you just find you're I just stumble across them 90% of the time. Blind dumb luck, right? As the old saying goes, even a blind horse finds water sometime, or something like that. I
Mhm.
don't remember how it goes, but that's kind of what I do. So
Good deal. So I got you on today. We're talking about spy baits.
mhm.
So spy baits is a technique, a lure that a lot of people don't utilize that often, but it's a really good fish catcher. So talk about spy baits. Why should people be thinking about using a spy bait, and when should they think about using a spy bait?
So I think spy baits can really stand out when you have uh, suspended bass. Now it's not a bait that you're going to want to cover water with, right? Like, so it's not something like a crank bait or a jerk bait that you're going to fish fast to go locate those fish. So these are fish that you've already located, are there. And there's a couple of great ways uh, to fish it. Now I always say, it's a hard bait. So you need some sort of cover, some sort of heavy structure that the bass can be sitting down in, some sort of cloud cover or ripple on the water. Even in the clearest of water, even though this bait is designed to catch bass in ultra clear water. It's still a hard bait. And hard baits in general are always going to look less natural, especially when you're fishing for largemouth. You know, smallmouth and spotted bass, they're just ultra aggressive. It seems like they're always mad, you know. It was like my mom when I lived at home. I always made her mad. but you know, it was, you know, so they're a little more, you know, you need a little less. But largemouth, I always say they're like me. They're like a fat guy. They like to look at it, sniff it a little bit before they go eat it. They want to make sure it's the good quality stuff, and then they're gonna eat a whole lot of it, right? So anytime, you know, you're choosing between a soft plastic or a hard bait, you want something to break the profile, to break up that bait, not let them get such a good look at it. So spy baits, because you're fishing them a lot of the time in open water, you're going to need that little bit of cloud cover. You're going to need that little bit of chop on the water. And the two places that I really love a spy bait is when those bass, or we're really three places, are suspended, or when you can contour the bottom, right? So let's say you've got a bank and you know there's some bass or a point or something that those bass are just sitting on. And you can throw that bait down there and you can sink it real close to the bottom and you can just slow roll it right over top of them. They'll come up and get it. Let's say you've got a school of them sitting out there in open water. And that's another great thing. You can throw it out there and slow roll it right over top of them. You know, now one of the tricks that I never talk about, I don't think I've ever talked about this on my channel, so I'm kind of giving you something here, is I always like to have a really light one on, because when they start busting shad or busting bait on top water, you can really throw that thing out there and just rip it or just reel it real fast and stop. And it's got such a great, the two blades, when you stop that spy bait, it's got such a great shimmy fall to it. And then you rip it again and it'll come back up, and those blades, it'll have that nice tight wiggle. So it'll really get those bass, if they don't want to, if they're not dedicated to top water, which has been the case here lately. A lot of times that action will get you bites because they're eating the shad subsurface.
Okay, so you mentioned something just there where you said you're going to rip it up and then let it fall back down. Now, most people, when they think of a spot bait, they say it's you cast it out there, slow retrieve, or you let it sink down to the desired depth and then slow retrieve. But you actually are putting some more action into it as well.
Yeah, and it's great, especially when the bass are super active like that. It's something that, you know, when they want to chase, you can really give it a good rip and then let it stop, because it does have, and that's, I think that's one of the mistakes a lot of people make when they're fishing a spy bait, is one of the key actions that are designed into almost every spy bait is that shimmy fall. So, you know, that's something on occasion you want to utilize, is to see if maybe that stop and that shimmy fall and then just a quick pickup, even if you're just throwing it out there reeling, you know, nice and slow, every once in a while, just stop it, give it a little tweak to get it back up to that desired depth. But that shimmy fall sometimes is just more than they can stand.
Okay, so what about rods and reels? Most people, ideally, I would say, use a spinning rod. So what's your tackle sword? What do you use for it?
Now, that's most of the time, that's what I'm going to use too. It's going to be a spinning rod. You know, for me, I don't get, depending on the length of the cast, my go-to is probably just going to be a good 7 to 7'3" medium fast action. Now, line is where it really matters. Line, because you've got to remember, line creates drag in the water, which leads to lift, right? So when you're fishing a spy bait, holding your rod tip down is also a key. Because if you're fishing heavier line, so let's say you're fishing, I'll fish a little heavier line, 8-pound test, but realistically, you want to fish most of the time anywhere from like 3 to 6 pound test on a spy bait. Now, I don't recommend doing that if you're in open water, or I mean, if you're around, because there's a lot of things, running a spy bait over brush piles, lay downs, around boat docks that are floating, it's an incredible bait for those types of things. I don't recommend using 6 pound tests, because they're going to break you off then.
Mhm.
But if you're in open water where they're not going to get tangled around anything, just have your drag set right. Now, I'm old, and back in the day when these new spinning rods come out, if people watch, I get this comment all the time. They're like, "Is he reeling backwards?" Yes, I back reel because I grew up not trusting, because old school drag on the old reels did not work very well. So you would back reel to them and learn how to play the fish. I don't recommend you trying that nowadays. Drag is great. It's just an old bad habit. But
Now, do
that's
you
generally. Go ahead. I'm
go ahead? Go
sorry.
ahead. Do
But
you
I was
recommend?
just gonna say that's generally what I throw it on.
Good deal. Now, have you tinkered at all with the BFF sensors, the bait finesse systems, and the little small, spinning, not spinning rods,
Casting
for
rods.
small lures? Yeah. Have you
Yeah,
test
I
those
have
out and stuff on them at all?
I have played with some of them. Some of the Demiki stuff. Demiki makes a great line of hard baits in the BFS stuff. I mean, tiny little poppers. So I played with a little bit of it, but I'll just be honest with you. I mean, I guess I've been doing it for so long. I just soon throw a spinning rod. I mean, I
Right.
would. Some of the bait casting systems are so expensive. I'm like, well, I just get like a crappie rod and throw that sucker on it, and I'm good as gold, and I can
Good
get
to
that
go.
for
Right.
way
Yeah.
cheaper.
Hmm.
So, that's just me. You guys do what you want. Have fun. It's fish. Have fun with it.
Right. Right. All right. So you did a video recently on the Duo Realis, the Heartbeat spin
Yeah,
bait. Now that is I guess considered a spy bait, but it's
it
not.
is.
When you look at it, it doesn't have propellers on the side. It has a propeller on the body, on the belly of it. So talk about that. What were your thoughts on that one? Was it a good one? Do you recommend that one over other spy baits, or what's going on with that one?
I think that bait is a little more limited in what you're doing with it, and where I've really found that bait shines, because it is really light, so you're not going to fish it very deep. So it's going to be pretty much uh, ultra shallow water bait. Like that bait is going to be a very lightly subsurface. Now, where I found that bait shines, because when you look at it, it looks like a topwater popper. Like if you were just to see it and didn't know, it looks like a popper. It is not a popper, but I will tell you this: that bait is great when bass are pushing bait fish up, whether it be bluegill in the ultra shallows when the bluegill are spawning, or whether it be shad out in the middle of the lake, whatever, because you can do a couple different things with it. And you can run it just below the surface. It's extremely subtle. So unlike the your standard spin bait style spy baits, right, with blades on each end, that's got a lot more twist and action. This has a lot subtler action to it. So really the only action comes from the propeller. So the water passes through the mouth and out the belly, and there's a propeller and two BBs down there. And that has a little bit of it's just got this nice little, it's why they call it the heartbeat, is it's like a heartbeat. So it's got this nice little about it. It's great as a wake bait. So you can reel it a little faster so that it just breaks the surface of the water and pushes that water down through it, and you can kind of, across the top. That'll get them going just under the surface when they're pushing that shad. If they don't want to break the surface, is also good. It's a more subtle spy bait, basically, is what it is.
Okay, see, I haven't fished it yet, so I have to check that one out. But it looks
Yeah,
so interesting because I mean, Duo Realis, they make some of the most interesting baits out there. They're unconventional with how they create stuff, but that's those
they
those
really do. They make some
mm,
really cool stuff. And I've got some cool stuff that we're going to do some videos on here as we get into fall that I cannot wait to get into.
So outside of the Duo, are there any other spot baits you think people should check out? Any other brands you think make a
Yeah,
better spot bait than others?
Yeah, there's several brands out there. I think it is, what's the other Japanese? I always get them. It's not Lucky. Yeah, Lucky Craft. I always get Lucky Craft and Lucky Strike messed up. Both great companies. Lucky Craft makes some good ones. The Spro one is pretty good. A little more balanced, so you don't necessarily have to worry about the line and the lift on the bait as much. So yeah, there's some good ones out there. I'm a big fan of Duo. I guess I've just used them for so long, and I've just had that's my confidence spy baits. So
Good deal. All right. So before you go, if there was anything that someone who's getting into spot baiting, if you could tell them one thing to have success with a spot bait, what would it be?
slow. And if you think you're going slow enough, you're probably still too fast. So
Good deal. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about spot baits. Like I say, it is something that anglers in general, do not utilize enough. And they're great baits. I actually have a video. I got a spot bait, a Berkeley Spy, stuck in my head. And my wife had to pull it out. It was a horrible video, but I should post it sometime. But yeah, they're great baits to use. I appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody where they can learn more about BassGeek, about yourself, and watch your videos.
And just one more thing on a spy bait. They're not just for smallmouth. I use them really mainly for largemouth in the summer, honestly.
Yeah. I agree.
So
I'm in Florida, so I use them for largemouth all the time. So
exactly. So and in Florida, gosh, you get me. My brain starts working. In Florida, because they love a lipless in Florida. That's a big thing in Florida, and so that's a great alternative, a little more subtle alternative to that lipless in Florida, because you can upsize, especially there. You can upsize the hooks on that, and if you really want to upsize your weights and kind of bring it through that grass and give it a little bit of rip and rip it through.
Right.
So, anyway. You get me talking. It's BassGeek for a reason. I start geeking out on this stuff, But you can just Google BassGeek, and you'll find my ugly mug. Not responsible for any screens that I break. My primary is YouTube, but we're on TikTok, X, Instagram, you name it, we're on it. So just trying to help people catch more fish, man. That's the deal. We did a live stream the other night, and a guy told me he caught his personal best on a tip I gave, and another guy told me that his daughter caught a personal best on a tip, and that's what it's about right there. I mean, that's awesome.
That's what's up. Well, again, appreciate you coming on. We're gonna have you back on because, like I said, you're a wealth of information. You are the BassGeek, and you always teach people how to fish. So please come back on. We'll talk more about some more fishing stuff. So we can geek out on some more stuff.
Sir.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.